Hytale is now available to the public, and a large number of creators are eager to start making servers, since modding in Hytale is really going to be something huge. However, be careful not to get ahead of yourself, because there are a lot of problems with the game. And in this video, I'm going to present to you 5 concrete reasons why you should probably wait instead of starting to create your server today. Although on this channel we usually talk about creating Minecraft servers, I'm going to try to stay as neutral as possible and explain a bit about why Hytale is going to be a great game in the future. But for now, unfortunately, it's way too early to launch any serious servers. So obviously, I'm not talking about small servers among friends, I'm really talking about large servers aiming for 100, 200 players, or even much more. So servers that will truly remain memorable over time, like Hypixel or Funcraft back in the day. In short, really big servers. And by the way, even now in France, there are still plenty of Minecraft servers running with more than 200 players. And for those servers, I think that right now, it's absolutely impossible to launch on Hytale without taking a huge amount of risk. Or else you'll have Hytale servers with very little content, because the more you want to add, the more you'll expose yourself to problems. And finally, there will really be a constant comparison with Minecraft in this video, simply because whether we like it or not, the two games are extremely connected. So that doesn't mean that one copied the other, nor does it mean that one will kill the other. It just means that these games will be able to coexist, which is entirely possible, and in fact what I think will happen. Hytale will have its own community, Minecraft will have its own community, and we'll have two completely different games, just like Minecraft wasn't killed by Roblox or by Fortnite. On the contrary, they coexist very well. It creates competition and expands the market for sandbox type games that let us create games within games. So, let's get started. The first reason why you shouldn't launch a Hytale server right now, at least not a serious one, is simply because the game is extremely unstable. Whether it's the server's RAM, crashes, or in-game lag, there are a lot of problems. And if you've played on servers, or even solo, I think there are still quite a few bugs. Personally, I've encountered several crash bugs and issues with teleportation. I've also noticed problems with my server's RAM since I set up an online server to play with friends. Well, that was before I realized you could host your own server, but anyway, I still created an online server, and again there were tons of problems, whether it was with administrator, etc. There are lots of people complaining about it on their Discord, so even without talking about modding, there are already a lot of problems with the base game. So imagine if you start adding mods, code that isn't yours, that you might not be familiar with, and you don't have any background in development. How is the game going to behave? How are you going to react and fix the issues? For me, that's really very problematic. For now, the game really lacks stability and therefore optimization. Next, without talking about technical problems this time, let's talk more generally about the gameplay. There are a lot of people who have a somewhat special opinion about Hytale. So what do I mean by that? It's really an opinion that's purely emotional and not factual. Unfortunately, we have to admit that Hytale currently lacks content. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to stay like this forever. It also doesn't mean that the game will necessarily evolve and become something amazing in the next 12 months. I think it could take a lot of time, because if you look at Minecraft, for example, the game has been out for a really long time and they keep adding content, but it still takes a lot of time and the updates aren't always super interesting every time. For now, they seem to want to change that a bit with more regular updates. Recently, they've made a bit of a change regarding the versions. There will not be a 1.21, 1.22, etc. anymore. They're going to change their method of updating the game a bit, so that's already interesting. But to get back to Hytale right now, there is a lot of key content that exists in Minecraft but not in Hytale. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do to address that. For example, in Minecraft, when you play vanilla, you have redstone, you have automatic farms, you have mob spawners, you have tons of features like that. You have the nether, you have the end, you have a lot of things that add objectives and above all mechanics to the gameplay that are super interesting, super deep, and that completely change the game if you take them out. In fact, it would make the game so simple that I think a lot of people would stop playing Minecraft. I know that when I do a survival run with friends to try out a new version that just came out, for example, we'll try to make little redstone systems, we'll make a door for our house so it opens automatically, we'll set things up with spawners, we'll build mob towers. In short, there are tons of factories and super interesting mechanics in Minecraft that don't exist in Hytale. So maybe there are some that exist that we just haven't discovered yet, but even aside from that, I think there still aren't enough mechanics to make the game interesting in that regard. And unfortunately, I think that creating a game, creating a server on Hytale, or coming up with a concept for a video game that is too weak in its vanilla state is going to be very complicated. It will require a huge amount of work and a lot of modifications to the mechanics. And I'm afraid that if the game is updated extremely often, it will create a lot of complications and work for you to keep a server up to date like that indefinitely. It's as if on Minecraft you had a server in production and you had to change its version every 2 weeks. That would actually be horrible. In general, we create a Minecraft server using a slightly older version, for example 1.20 or 1.21.4, and we do not touch it after that. So yeah, we don't take the very latest version and update it every couple of days just because there's a bug fix to do every day. So really that can be a big problem in my opinion. The third reason, which is an extremely important one, even though things are evolving very quickly because there is a huge community interested in Hytale, is the cost of designing a server. There's a lot of development to do because the game has just come out, so there are very few tools available online. I think that anyone who gets into creating Hytale servers without a background in developing plugins and mods in Java is going to find it very complicated. Why? Because they'll have to rely on code from people who publish things for free on the internet, or even paid ones for that matter. Except that a lot of things are made with AI, a lot are done by beginner developers, by people who aren't very good, things that aren't tested, that are incomplete. There are a ton of reasons, and you can even see it when creating a Minecraft server. Your server might crash, have performance issues, lag, or a bad plugin could cause you problems that you wouldn't actually be able to debug without experience, in-depth knowledge of the game or development skills. So it's going to be very complicated. So in my opinion, waiting a little while for things to stabilize is a good idea. We're going to see developers we know, maybe even from Minecraft, who will come and create quality things that we can use. It's like if we took WorldGuard out of Minecraft, or removed World Edit, or if we took away Vault or Essentials, plugins that everyone knows and uses because they're well designed and have been made and tested over many years. Well, you can criticize them, but above all, they're essential. There are plenty of people who complain, who say they're not very well coded, but honestly, they're there, they work on almost every server that's currently running. There's a reason they're downloaded so much, so we have to admit that these are stable plugins. Whereas on Hytale right now, if I start downloading plugins, it's going to be completely blind. Really, it's just a roll of the dice and we'll be hoping to get a plugin that works more or less well. So it's also a big risk on that side if you don't have the skills to do it, and if you do have the skills, you're going to have a whole lot of work ahead of you. Next, the fourth reason, which is somewhat related to what I just mentioned, is that the game is still very new, and unfortunately there are a lot of people who don't know about it yet, and that's actually normal, because when you look at it, we've seen some really interesting videos from the Hytale team who have created super cool mods, but well, these are people who have known the game for years, who have worked on it, who know the game better than the Hytale wiki, which is currently made by fans, could ever explain. So it's actually normal, it's normal that they're able to do such crazy things, but it took them a huge amount of time working full-time on the game, so just keep that in mind. I think it's still going to be quite a while before people from the community manage to pull off things like that. So there are already some really cool things being made, but for us to get to the point of creating ultra advanced, really well designed game content with 3D models and figuring out how to host all of that on a solid infrastructure, it's gonna take time. In short, there are a lot of complications that at this point require us to take a step back and analyze the game as it is, to understand what it offers in its vanilla state and what it allows us to do. And above all, well, it depends on the game mode you want to play. For everyone who wants to create SMPs but does not think ahead about what the game will become, how you will shape your gameplay, etc. Unfortunately, you will launch an SMP, it might last for a while, but in my opinion, if you hope to make the B2T of Hytale, you are not the first to try, and without innovation, in my view, without mods, you are really going to struggle to stand out because there are already giants in place. So in fact, you are limiting yourselves with restrictions you impose on yourselves. Next, the fifth point is the monetization aspect and the business model that servers will be able to use. Now, I haven't looked into this a lot because honestly, we are really lacking information. I tried to see a bit of what was being done here and there. I tried to get some opinions from people in the field and so on. And unfortunately, we really don't have much information because, for example, I've seen shops on some servers that are already up and running. In fact, that's the first thing they did, create a shop. And it's actually super complicated to know how it's regulated, what we're allowed to monetize or not, whether pay to win is allowed. I feel like it's still pretty unclear. They did set up a sort of framework because there's an EULA and there is some information that has been communicated in certain blog posts, but it's extremely vague about what the actual limits are. I heard that eventually we'll be required to put Hytale cosmetics in the shop we set up. I also heard that there was an in-house shop system on Hytale, but right now I don't feel like that's actually the case. It seems like we're rather forced to use mods with external connections and so on, to give out points and basically to provide in-game perks a bit in our own way, as we try to do as best we can with the tools we have. So right now, even on that front, it's actually pretty unclear and full of uncertainties. So once again, the wise thing would be to wait and see how things turn out, how people will create their servers and so on. Now, if there are people who are extremely eager to start a project on Hytale because they think they can ride the wave, well, there's still something that worries me a bit. In France, I don't get the impression that the game is super hyped. There is a small community. Let's be honest, there are people who play, but I haven't seen any ultra hyped Hytale servers with hundreds of players. Right now, that's not the case at all. And even though there are streamers who have played the game a lot, they themselves say it, the streamers will wait until the game is officially released, because right now it's too lacking in content, or you'd have to add a ton of mods to make it interesting. But if we do that, well, we expose ourselves once again to performance issues, crashes and so on, which are extremely complicated to manage at the moment. So listen, I think we've pretty much covered everything I wanted to show you in this video. Honestly, Hytale is going to be an incredible game, but there are two important things it needs to do before it can truly become one. The first is to have content, become stable, and release content updates very regularly until the game is fully launched. And the second thing is to communicate, to reassure people, and maybe bring back those they've lost along the way, since the game has taken so long to come out that they've lost a lot of people and a lot of trust as well. So they're really going to have to build a reliable and stable community over time, prove that the tools they provide are accessible to everyone, that anyone can create really interesting games, a bit like on Roblox, where it's much easier to create a game than on Minecraft, even though there's a lot more competition and it's harder to get your game noticed. It's actually still easier to create it as such. And that's really where they'll be able to stand out, but it's going to take a lot of time. So for now, my position is really to take a step back, watch what people are doing, what's happening, and in any case, there will be room for everyone in the market. Don't think that if you don't get started now, later on there will already be people established and it will be impossible for you to launch. That's not the case. Just look at how things work on Minecraft, and there you go. You just need to take a step back and not be afraid of missing out on an opportunity for no reason. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was Fox, and I'll see you very soon for another video. Bye everyone.